Everybody is telling you that AI will replace developers. I actually tried it for 5 months and it's not as rosy as you might think. I'm a technical co-founder of a 6-figure SaaS that I built last year. And now this year I wanted to build a second one and I thought, why not just go all in with AI and don't even hire a developer? And now it's been 5 months and I learned a lot. I'm going to give you the honest breakdown of where AI actually excels and where it's super easy to create features, then where AI is okay, but you need to do a lot in order to get better with it. And then also the points where AI totally tanks. And especially the last point was grueling for me. I wasted many days figuring out this one thing. Front-end development. Now, this is something that I have a special relationship with because I'm a back-end developer. I was never good at CSS. I tried to outsource that to other developers as much as I could. But now this time I thought, can I actually replace a front-end developer? And lo and behold, it worked really well. I did not have any struggle with the front end. And of course, a couple of principles I had to apply in order to make it work. The first was very strict separation between front-end and back-end. Coding with AI, I thought I would just directly split the front end with the back end and I would make sure that in between is a really clean API and this API would be tested really well. I'm using so-called end-to-end tests for that. And just with a couple of prompts, AI was able to write the front-end code for me in React and Vite and Tailwind. To me, front-end development is gonna go away anyway, because at one point we'll only work with APIs. And you're seeing this already. Everybody's using their agents. Everybody has a subscription to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or XAI, booking system, ordering food, whatever it is, the AI can do it for you. So it's just natural to let them be auto-generated based on an API. The second point is common features. If a feature is not specific to what I'm doing in my business domain, then this could be generated by AI. A recent example is an uploading feature that I built into my B-roll management software. We needed to have resumable uploads. So whatever gets uploaded gets chunked and put into the file system. And once completed, the whole file is getting put into the file system as a complete video file. This is a feature that's very common to a lot of other software developers. So the AI knew a lot of examples of how to actually build those algorithms. I coded this in basically a one-shot with Claude Code. I just basically said what I wanted and up came this uploading box that just worked. So I noticed a common feature is something that AI can do really well. And it could be anything, like a login system, like a sign-up procedure, like a wizard, something that has been done a lot of times before. Because in the end, if you listen to David Heinemeier Hansson, we're all just CRUD monkeys. It's not rocket science. We are just coding stuff that goes into the database. So why not let AI do it? The third point is refactoring. And refactoring, you might not think it works really well, but with the right requirements, it is actually really, really good. First, I had to have really good tests. Once the software had a good test basis, then it's easier to refactor the software. So you can think about, like, you define the box, this is what the software should do. So the requirements of the software are set. And once that's done and it's tested, we can make sure that the software actually works. And then I gave the AI a couple of prompts, like make a list of code that is duplicated and try to find patterns in order to fix that. Give me the list. And then I said, okay, give me the most important ones that are the quickest wins. And I said, always make sure that you run the tests after you do any kind of change. And so incrementally, the AI would refactor the code, but also know when it was breaking and then fix it. Without tests, this would not have been possible. Of course, I need to make sure that the AI does not do anything weird, but now I'm a fan with refactoring with AI. The AI has certain aspects where you can work really well with it, but it needs a lot of hand-holding and it needs a lot of feedback. And one of the points is UX. So UX used to be the process where you specify what you wanted, you give it to the UX designer, and then you get back something that looks pretty. You give it to the developer codes it out, and it comes back and you have a finished software. At least that was the theory. Now with AI, it is more an iterative process where you tell it, I want, let's say, a login system, and it gives you back a functioning login system. And then you say, okay, but I want this, I want that. And then you slowly move the things. Then you say, okay, I want this button to the left and this button to the right. It works, but it needs a lot of feedback from the user. So basically, you're going from the developer seat into the product manager seat, and you direct what should the product actually do and how should it look like. I believe this is actually a net benefit because the UX designer would make something static, but there are always edge cases. And there are edge cases where you need data for. And now coding with AI, you actually have that data. In this regard, I'm now the UX designer and I'm happy with what I'm producing, but it took me some time to get there. And a quick point which is important for, in general, product development, building businesses with AI is naming. You always need a name, you need a .com domain, ideally. You need something that's brandable. And with AI, I'm now able to brainstorm names much faster, but the process is still there. You need to take the names, throw them into, let's say, Namecheap, find if the domain is available, then see if there's some name registered for that. So the process is easier because you get a lot of suggestions from AI, but there is still a lot of manual work needed. I'm happy with the names I found. I think I will find the next names also with AI, but it's not something that you can completely hand off. Internationalization. We have a SaaS that is in German and in English, and previously I would write some scripts that I would take the internationalization file. So you can think of all the strings in an application to have a certain identifier, and then the identifier gets put into some database in a file system where you can say, okay, if it's English, take this out. If it's German, take that out. Previously, I would take those files and I would run them through Google Translate or even OpenAI. You can even throw the whole thing into ChatGPT and it will come back with the whole database. But now this is actually built into the development process, and this is good, but it needs some hand-holding. Strings are not always the exact same as they should be, and sometimes I need to tweak the German. Overall, I'm happy. It's just not a one-shot solution. Now we're getting to the section where AI fails hard. And the first one is DevOps. Developer and operations together. So this is basically where the developer goes in and makes sure that the app runs on production and is deployed on a server and does the right things for the user. During this process, there are a lot of things that can break. Sometimes the AI can help in order to debug problems that arise, but most of the cases you really need to know what is the things that you exactly want to do, and then you need to fix the things yourself. I learned that with the stack that I'm using, right now it's Hetzner and Kamal and Docker and let's say Postgres or SQLite. This stack is maybe not so known to the AI, or there is not so much open source code. Whatever it is, I don't know, but the AI usually fails with helping me solve the problems, let's say in a Docker file or in the provisioning or in the GitLab CI, where we have a pipeline that deploys the code on our server. At one point, we always need DevOps. So a good DevOps person is always needed, and those people are very likely to keep their jobs. The next point where AI did not work really well for me is database design. It indeed is able to help me, give me some feedback for the designs I come up with. So I can say, hey, how about this? Is this a good design? And sometimes it would do very generic things like a login system and putting all the fields in place. But usually the AI would overcomplicate the designs that it made. And I would then dial it back and say, we don't need these fields. We need it simpler. We don't need an extra table. With the database design, I was constantly cutting back on complexity. And that I don't see how an AI can do it by itself right now. And now to the last point where I sunk in the most time, and that was actually a grueling experience, was testing and writing tests. Because at one point the AI just wants to serve it to you and make sure everything works. So if I tell it, hey, fix the test, make sure everything is green, the AI could do the right thing, look at the code and say, well, actually the code is not right. Let's fix that. Many times the AI would go in and say, oh, how about I just change the test expectation? And then the tests go green and I think everything is good, but actually the software would break in production for the actual users. And there was a lot of back and forth, especially with math-based structures. So some algorithms that really needed to have a defined output. What I ended up doing in one case was there was a calculation through a graph with a CSV table. So abstractly, I needed to have the CSV table with tests and expectations and some kind of graph that also needed to be defined in the database. What I ended up doing was using Mermaid. So Mermaid is a diagram language that you can write in plain text, and then this diagram language would get translated into real graphics. And I would put the test data and the test expectations into this diagram, and I would write on top of the file, if you're Cloud Code, you never ever modify this file. It contains the truth and we need to keep it like this. But now having this core of truth defined in my software made it possible to arrange everything else around it. Once I did this one thing, it actually worked really well. Claude was able to write the tests and then also fix all the software surrounding it that previously had wrong algorithms. But it took me some time to figure that out. The uncomfortable truth is that AI is actually better in many things than I was as a developer. While we can replace a lot, now we still have to do the work of giving feedback and telling the AI what to do, and eventually also doing the really hard things like deployment. Some things we just cannot outsource, but overall, we are in a crazy time right now. I am so productive and I'm doing things alone where I previously would have needed a UX designer, another developer for front end, and then probably a backend developer. And now I can do all these things alone. If I was a junior developer, I would be scared, to be honest. Given all these, AI is not perfect, of course, but it gives a crazy developer boost. It gives me a productivity I haven't thought before. What is your experience with that? Leave a comment below.